I'm Josh Paulison, and this is Inspector Josh Investigates TV. I study TV shows for writing lessons based on what the writers did right and where they did not. And today, I'm gonna cut the sexy voice and go back to my regular. Today, we are looking at Yu-Gi-Oh! And I have to go, oh, because there's an exclamation point, and I think that means I have to go, oh! And this is, to be clear, the 4Kids translation to English from 2002. We are going to look at the pilot episode, Season 1, Episode 1, The Heart of the Cards. Now, warning, spoilers are ahead. If you do not like spoilers, stop this. I hate spoilers personally, so if you hate spoilers, we are kindred spirit. We are going to focus on coincidence. Now, I have to say, when I saw this episode, and again, I know that it was a translation by 4Kids. From what I've heard, I think Funimation is doing a new translation of Yu-Gi-Oh! I heard something about that. I believe it was about the old series getting retranslated, and I assume that in and of itself is much better. But we're focusing on the 4Kids translation, and I have to say I cracked up for pretty much the entire episode because the writing was so bad. Maybe the Japanese writing was great, but the translation just cracked me up. It was so awful. And yeah, I know this isn't a review channel, but that's my thoughts. Anyway, we are going to talk about coincidence because the whole plot is, well, not the whole plot, but Yu-Gi-Oh! Winning in the end, spoiler alert, but I already told you that at the beginning, is that he manages to get these different cards that combined create this uber powerful monster. And yay, now you can beat the bad guy and his dragons. So what is okay with coincidence? As writers, we don't want the audience to feel cheated or for something to feel like a deus ex machina, which I always call it deus ex machina, which dropping some deuces doesn't quite fit. Deus ex machina. I need to make sure I pronounce that right. With deus ex machina, I'm probably still pronouncing it wrong. We see something happen that shouldn't have been able to happen or that wasn't foreshadowed. But when it comes to coincidence, how acceptable is coincidence? What makes it unacceptable? Did this episode in particular use coincidence well? Well, we arguably have pieces of foreshadowing in the heart of the cards and in there being some logic that this guy was actually a great card player. So you can argue that we have pieces of foreshadowing that this deck must have had some reason for being, somehow it was a really good deck. But how far can coincidence go and be okay? How far can we say this could happen? Even how small can the chances be and it be okay? My first point on that would be that every story has coincidences. So coincidence isn't a bad thing. Coincidences are how a lot of things in our life happen. For example, and I mean, I'm a person who believes in purpose and in spiritual influence. I'm a Christian, so I don't believe that as much of it's coincidence as other people would. I view it almost like a writer, where it's like, okay, well, here are the pieces organized. But things that just seem to happen by chance, things that seem like they shouldn't really be able to happen. We know that the writer's making it happen. We know that it is on purpose on the writer's part. But what pieces can come together in the story for that to be acceptable to us as an audience? Most of the time, though, the stories do happen through extreme coincidence. You know, that guy went into the store in this Yu-Gi-Oh! Episode. Or let's look at some other series. Well, in Moana, for example, and I guess there will be a little bit of spoilery here for Moana. If you do not want spoilers, stop it. We see that she happens to be by the water's edge as a child, and the spirit of the water communicates with her a bit. And we see that she happens to, when she falls into the, I'm trying to remember what it's called now, the place with all the monsters, the underwater, undergroundish, well, it's underwater place, she happens to land on Maui instead of falling to her death. We see coincidence all over in story, and sometimes we find it acceptable, sometimes we find it unacceptable. The first thing that I'd say is I think that this is a lot up to the viewer, because different people have differing levels of belief. Some of this could be argued as naivete. For example, I tend to be somewhat naive. Maybe I shouldn't have said that on a public podcast, but I can be. So I will be more likely to believe something. Now, again, the problem with these stories is not could it happen. The problem is, what are the odds? are the odds high enough for us to accept? If it's a 50% chance that something could happen, we will likely accept it. But if it's a 1% chance, will we? What about a 0.01%? What about a 0.001%? But those are often what make the stories that we love. When we think about the underdog stories, usually the underdogs don't win through these series of impeccable, unbeatable strategies. They usually win through a combination of strategy and luck. And in some cases, it's luck pushed over and over and over again. We just got lucky. We just got lucky. We just got lucky. Barely, barely, barely. I'm going to throw out Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood as a good example, since we're talking about anime. There were a lot of pieces of chance in there, and I'm not going to... I sort of want to look at examples, but I don't want to do spoilers in case you want to watch that one. Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood had a lot of pieces that if the times hadn't aligned just right, if the timing hadn't been perfect, the world would have been doomed. There would have been a lot more destruction, a lot more problems. So arguably, it was a lot of little chances coming together. But there was also a lot of pushing forward and pushing through and energy and motivation, self-motivation. It wasn't all just everything's going perfectly, chances in the favor of the main characters or the characters that we're rooting for. It was instead, here is a combination of chance and strategy. And I think one of the things with our own writing is if all of the opportunities that seem to happen by chance are only in the favor of the protagonists, that doesn't seem to line up with real life. Usually, chance favors both sides, and it's who uses those opportunities best. Actually, there's a book, this is still in the vein, but there's a book by Jim Collins where he talks about how luck works, and he did this with a team, but for studying, but he talks about how the problem with most businesses who don't do as well as comparison companies, every company has great opportunities. Every company has good luck, but it's about what he calls return on luck. How well was that luck used to move forward? Everybody has opportunities of good luck. So I would say that what makes opportunity or randomness more okay, in my mind, is it random? Is it truly random spread about? If only the main characters or the characters that you like or want to win have good opportunities, have good luck, then your story is not going to be very believable. They're going to come across most likely as a Mary Sue. But if everybody has good luck and some characters just use it better than others, we will accept it. For example, arguably in this first episode of Yu-Gi-Oh!, again, I laughed pretty much the entire time, but the bad guy in it, he had good luck of learning where this new dragon card was. So arguably, he had good luck. And at first, the guy who he was fighting had bad luck. He lost. And then Yu-Gi-Oh! Had good luck. So you can argue that in this situation, both sides had good and bad luck. So arguably, this episode actually handled luck pretty well, because it was not a case of only the good guys have good luck. Both sides had some good luck. And in this case, Yu-Gi-Oh! Handled the good luck that he got. He had that opportunity. He handled it really well. The bad guy perhaps could have pushed through in other ways. And arguably, he didn't necessarily use his opportunities as strongly as he could have. I think that there are other ways that he could have won, or just moved ahead and he could have just been like, whatever, instead of being some big, jerk. Case closed. Thank you for listening. We'll be back with another investigation tomorrow. You can follow me on Twitter or check out my other great resources on my website. You can find links to each in the episode description. Music provided by Comfortable Mystery 4 by Kevin MacLeod, Incompetech.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license. You can find more information in the episode description.